what is the worry there with Alabama? They're firmly number two. I mean, we can agree. I
Agree.
mean, they're firmly number two. What is the caution or the bugaboo about Bama? Is it how losing to Texas A&M and then the way you played against Florida and LSU? Is that I think, am I right on that type of assumption that they're just not as strong as they've been as last year, where they just blew the doors off everybody?
Yeah, Max, look, I mean, if we're evaluating Alabama relative to who they usually are, I mean, were they above slipping up a game and maybe losing a game, or even a game being closer than it should in the past? Sure. But Saban always rebounded with absolute dominant performances the rest of the way and left no question of whether they are the top team in the country or a top two team in the country, or whether they're vulnerable. And, I think the last time that I thought Alabama was vulnerable was when Tua took over for Jalen Hurts. And in that era where Jalen Hurts and Tua were the quarterbacks and they were deciding to go a spread offense, right? They were going to spread this thing out. They were going to make it, where they could score more points, sure, but you also risk more turnovers, more sacks, more risk with your quarterback from a health standpoint. I thought, okay, at that point in time, they're vulnerable. They're going to be tough to beat, but they're vulnerable. Well, they proved me to be dead ass wrong, because they kept rattling off dominant wins and championships. Yeah. And I sit here today, Max, and I'm with you, man. I think they're vulnerable. They're still one of the best teams in the country, but I think they're vulnerable. I think they've shown it against A&M. I think they showed it against LSU and against Florida, where it wasn't just closer games than it should have been. I think LSU and Florida are two programs that we now know are down significantly, and they were able to compete and come within a field goal or a touchdown, one play here or there, of beating Alabama. And so I think the story with Alabama in the SEC right now is that they're vulnerable. They are vulnerable right now, and Texas A&M is sitting there just laid off in the weeds, waiting for them to slip up against somebody the rest of the way, and for for A&M to sneak into that SEC West title and ultimately into the SEC championship game. So, I think they're vulnerable in a big way.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think this is not the normal Saban team. I mean, they're young. It's young at Bryce Young at quarterback. And then, you lost a massive amount of talent. Yes, I know they often reload more than they rebuild, but this is Alabama's version of a rebuild, right? Yeah. Not being number one and not being the hands down favorite in all of college football. Let's turn the attention to
Max. Well, before we get off Alabama, keep in mind they've got New Mexico State this weekend, which obviously is going to be a run through. But you've got Auburn and Arkansas left on their schedule, right? And I don't think either one of those teams are world beaters. But if you look at how they're winning ball games, Arkansas has lost 3 ball games, but they are one of, if not the best run game in the country. In terms statistically, what they're doing in the run game. They've got a chance to run the football against Alabama, which in my lifetime of covering the game, I don't know that I've ever been able to say that since Saban's been at Alabama. They've got one in Treylon Burks. They've got one of, if not the best receiver in the country, in my opinion, that can make plays outside. And Kendall Briles and KJ Jefferson are getting better together. And not to quote my man Luke Combs, who is a phenomenal country music artist that I'm a huge fan of, but Better Together is one of his great songs. KJ Jefferson and Kendall Briles are getting better, and Barry Odom is as good a schemer as there is on the defensive side of the football. So when you talk about, okay, am I going to bet money that Arkansas upsets Alabama? Absolutely not. It's at their place. But if you look around the SEC in terms of those middle of the pack teams that can upset somebody, man, I think Arkansas is firmly in the middle of them. Also, Auburn. Look, Mike Bobo and Bo Nix, again, better together, man. They're getting consistently better. Rough week this week in College Station, but getting consistently better together. Derek Mason on the defensive side of the football. They can cause problems. That Iron Bowl is a lot more interesting than I think we're probably giving it credit for. So Bama is vulnerable, and I think they've got 2 dudes left on their schedule that could very easily put them in a tough spot in the fourth quarter, just like Florida did, just like LSU did, and who knows what happens from there.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is where, Saban and his genius coaching is going to have to really pay off to get them in that position, because I don't think a tight line doesn't bother Bama, right?
Yeah.
And apparently it doesn't bother the college football playoff committee either. They're like, listen, as long as it's a W, you'll stay at top. You'll stay at number 2.
That's right.
But you're gonna. I think you're right. You're gonna get tested, and we're gonna see if they do make the mistake.